Welcome to this edition of Group Talk. You'll be learning about 10 critical steps for migrating your IBM Lotus Notes applications. You'll be hearing from Paul Calhoun, the Director of Worldwide Enablement here at GBS. Without further ado, here's Paul.
Officially, good morning and welcome to the first in our series of some webinars that we're doing this month. Again, this is a presentation that we did at Lotusphere this year on the 10 critical steps for migrating your notes applications. Let me go ahead and start by saying we got some feedback at Lotusphere from some people who attended this. It was a vendor session that we did at Lotusphere, and I got some comments back that they were a little disappointed that we spent time talking about GBS products and services. So let me just go ahead and position this for you. We are going to talk about 10 critical steps from a pretty generic point of view for the first half of the session or so, but we are going to highlight GBS products and services throughout this as the portion of how you can actually attain these 10 critical steps. So it's not an infomercial for just GBS services and products, but we are going to talk about those as we go through. As Don mentioned again, this is just me. Again, I'm Paul Calhoun, Director of Worldwide Enablement here at GBS, responsible for educating our partners, our clients, our internal engineers on X pages, as well as our GBS Transformation Suite. So again, that's just kind of who I am. I've been working with Notes and Domino since Release 2. Been certified in every version of Notes and Domino since Release 3, since they started the certification program. So my experience and my career has been predominantly Domino-based. I have attained Microsoft System Administration certification, so I have kind of dipped, my toes in both pools there. This actual presentation is based upon a white paper, the details of which can be downloaded at the following URL. The URL is there. If you miss it, then again, I'll pull this URL up again at the end. But if you want to download the full white paper, then pretty much all of the slides that I go through are based upon that. So you can get the nitty-gritty detail of this white paper at the following URL. So you don't have to worry about trying to get the slides, print the slides off. If you want to actually pass this information on to other folks in your organization, probably the best way to do that is to go to that URL and get the PDF version of this, content. You don't have to worry about hastily jotting it down. Again, I'll pull this up at the end, but this is the complete content in PDF format. Again, it's going to be a really good handout that you can use to communicate this information to other folks in your environment. So again, just a resource that we're providing for you there. So let's just jump right into the content. So the entire impetus behind putting this content together, and obviously we've been working in the Notes and Domino space for a really long time. We've got some analytics that were done for us and the rest of the community. The number that out there and the numbers that we kind of start looking at throwing around is since the inception of Notes and Domino, it's approximately 10 million plus applications. And through some additional analytics that we've done, that number is actually closer to probably 20 million. That's 20 million Notes client applications that are running on desktops worldwide. And it's just a gigantic number. It's a huge thing to kind of get your head around. That's a lot of applications. It's many more applications than any of the competition, if you will, combined. Knowing that, there's also been some impetus in the past couple of months for organizations to see what they're going to do. We're not going to talk about specific versions, but there's still a lot of organizations out there that are running Notes and Domino version 6X or 7X. And they want to take advantage of this new, way cool Web 2.0 space, but they're not really sure how to get there. And they're going to have to make some decisions now about how they're going to get their information, their data to the new web space. Different companies, due to different decisions in their internal organization or pressures or whatever, they're falling into several categories. There's organizations that want to sunset their Notes clients. So we're not going to debate the right or the wrong or the good or the bad of that. We're just, that's a decision that's been made at the organization level. They want to sunset their Notes clients. But how then are they going to continue using those applications? So that's where the application migration comes in. Some organizations want to sunset their Notes clients as well as sunset their Domino servers. And they want to move those things off-premise and move those things into a cloud offering, a cloud space someplace. And others just want to continue maintaining certain Notes applications. They want to maintain their own Domino servers, but they want to provide the web tool look and feel to their existing applications, and they want to do that in the shortest amount of time frame possible. The big thing that we're going to talk about here today is when you're looking at a migration strategy, the number one thing that you have to take into account is the data. You have mission critical data that is sitting inside of Notes applications that you use to run your business. And in any migration strategy, that should be the top bullet point in everybody's decision making. So we're talking about more than just moving, mail. So I know that a lot of organizations have made the decision to move from Domino mail to Exchange mail. In that organization structure, a lot of times they think, well, we can just rip and replace all of the Domino services and replace those with Microsoft services. And again, we're not here to bash any of the competition and what Microsoft does, but what those organizations have found out is that, where mail is more or less a commodity, that applications are not, and that they can't really rip and replace Domino applications that have been running for the past 15 years and migrate those to another space. So we're going to go and we're going to talk about a lot of those things and talk to you about the things that you need to consider from a developer point of view, an administration point of view, a management point of view, and an architecture point of view throughout this presentation. Regardless of if this decision has been made in your organization, regardless of the technology stack you're going to choose, if you're going to move to X Pages and stay inside of this Domino or an alternate platform, the three bullets that you currently see are the primary considerations. You want to have a very solid migration methodology. You want to have a plan. You want to have best-of-breed tools that will help automate things that can be automated, and then a very high level of expertise in your core. And your core is Notes and Domino. So you need Domino developers, Domino administrators, folks that understand all the moving parts. And those folks need to be included in the decision-making process because they're the ones who can give you real-world information about moving forward into an existing Domino space, whether you're moving from 6 or 7x to 8x or 8.5x, or if you're moving from 6, 7x off to something else. And again, we'll look at these strategies. So we're going to run through the 10 steps here, the things to kind of consider. And again, these are kind of boiled down from the detailed white paper. So again, all of these points are detailed in our white paper. And again, I encourage y'all to download that and work with that. But application inventory, we continue to be surprised going into organizations finding out from a consultant point of view that there's, even the folks that run the day-to-day Domino environment don't really have a good handle on all the different applications that are running in their environment and being used or not being used. So one of the first things that we talk about is getting a good snapshot of all of the different applications that are running in your world. And the engagements that we've done to this point, pretty much invariably when we engage the client, then and even to a certain aspect when we kind of did this internally with ourselves, we run the assessment tool to get the inventory of the environment, and at least once someone will say, looking at the inventory list, God, I didn't know that application was out there. I didn't know we had that application. So you want more than just the applications that are running, but the additional information that becomes very, very important from a migration point of view is the version number of the application, the ODS, how big is it, some details that you can get about each application. You want to know whether or not that application interacts with a third-party system. Is it interacting with SAP or some other CRM-based application? Is it accessing the directory? Is it using RDBMS, relational databases, through DB2 or Oracle or MS SQL, whatever? Any gateway kind of information. So the more heuristics that you can get about the application, the better off you're going to be. It should also be said that, because a lot of times we go into organizations and they go, well, we know what our applications are. We can just kind of print out the catalog. And the thing that you can do, and absolutely that information is typically available through the catalog, but there's ways to A, hide applications from the catalog, and B, if you have more than 2 servers, then that's an exercise in kind of going and getting catalog information from each of the individual servers, even if that application is replicated, and making sure that you really have a true snapshot of all the applications that are running. Now, there are lots of vendors, Domino-based, IBM and Domino-based vendors that provide tools for this. We also offer a tool called the Transformer 2.0 Investigator. Whether you use our investigator tool or you get someone else's investigator tool, highly recommend that you automate the particular process of actually going out and collecting this information. It's going to provide you more than just a list of the applications. It's going to hopefully also give you user activity, database activity. One of the most important considerations is whether the application has actually ever been used or not. So a lot of application inventory mechanisms that are out there will return you a list of applications, but they don't really give you any indication of the last time someone actually opened that application. Okay? Those are kind of the metrics that you're looking for in order to make good decisions about what you migrate and move forward. This is a quote from Gartner, and it's included in our white paper, and it's kind of eye-opening from the standpoint that they've determined that 40 to 50% of databases in the last 5 years no one's accessed. So these applications were built, data was put into them, there were decisions made to keep those applications on Domino servers and move them forward for whatever reason, maybe just for archive purposes. In other words, that's where the data lives, and they don't want to pull them off, but they don't really know kind of what to do with those things. And you go in and you start looking at the usage statistics on those applications to find out that no one's opened that application, in the past 4 or 5 years, and then that application is going to fall into a category of what do you do. So key application inventory metrics. Again, whether you do this manually, you use our tool or someone else's, the database inventory needs to be able to give you system database information, application data, the largest applications, the most often used, the least often used, list of power users based upon application activity. Who uses the Notes applications the most? And that's also going to be a very important identifier to help us determine who are the power users in the organization, because they have a lot of invaluable information that we can utilize during this entire migration process. One other thing to take into consideration is the complexity review, is going in and having an analytics tool that's going to be able to tell you whether or not that application is a simple application or a more complex application. In combination with our Transformer Investigator tool, we also have the Transformer Analytics tool. And this is a subset of our larger analytics products that actually does a very detailed analysis of the application to come back and tell us what those design elements are. We've got a small screenshot there, number of agents, forms, frame sets, but it goes beyond just going in and giving me a list of the design elements, because where that can be an indication of the complexity of the application, I need to know much more than that. I need to actually know the type of code that is in that application. So our analyzer tool also gives us information about the formula logic being used, as well as return us information on any of the written Lotus script agents, events that are in there. So we can actually use the analysis tool to go in and determine, comparing application A to application B, and kind of then we, internally in our projects, we kind of put a category on those applications that help us then determine our workflow, standard, low, medium, high, very high. Whether you're migrating automatically or if you are migrating by hand, obviously a very high or complex, highly complex application is going to take longer, and you're going to have a little bit more consideration about its migration than just a standard application with one form and one view. The information we can then get, again, provides an overall picture of the total number of applications, the complexity breakdown, and then that helps us as we're moving those to web pages. Maybe some of those can just be moved through Core X page, where we can assign a developer to take those low complexity applications or very high complexity applications, because it has so many moving parts, or it integrates with so many other external systems that possibly manual migration versus automated migration is just a better fit for that. So when we're doing an analysis, we don't assume that every application that we identify is going to be applications that we run through our Transformer tool. Transformer is another tool that we have on our toolbox. But via our expert services, we're very, very cognizant about making sure that we use the right tool for the job. The complexity breakdown of applications helps us in making that determination. We just put out a table here on the decision matrix, and again, a lot of this is in significant more detail inside of the white paper. But if you have a very high complexity application, and it also falls into the high business priority, and the first two rows of that, typically your decision matrix there, if you have an application that's been sitting in the Notes client space that is used by everybody in the organization, so it has a high business priority, but it's also got a lot of moving parts. It's a workflow-based application, very high complexity. Then it falls into a categorization of what we call migrate and optimize. Then we want to actually migrate it to whatever our target's going to be, hopefully X pages. And then during that process, then we also want to optimize it. I always ask developers the exact same question during these presentations. If I have, or as a developer, if I have an application that I wrote when I first started learning Domino development, whether that was 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 10 or 5 or 3, if they have the opportunity to go back and rewrite their very first Notes application, knowing now, right, what they didn't know then, would they make different choices? Would they architect that application differently? And 100% of the time, the answer is absolutely. The problem is, or the challenge is that we don't always get the opportunity to go back and re-architect those applications, to revisit that code, that we don't do application audits near as often as we hope to do or want to even, given the business requirements of keeping things up and running and keeping new development moving forward. On the opposite end of the scale, we have a standard template maybe that is not active. So you still have the issue of needing access to the data. You may need the data for historical purposes. You may need the data for compliance reasons. But you can't just put that database on tape and stick that tape in a closet someplace. I actually did this approximately 7 years ago. I was at an organization, and there was some notes in an application that referenced another one. And I said, well, where's that application? And they go, oh, well, we've got all that backed up on tape. And I was like, tape, okay. So I said, if we had to restore that application, could we? And it prompted a discussion with their administration team to realize that they had lots of backups, but they no longer had the hardware to read the backup tape. So simply putting it in an archive medium is great as long as you can read that data back. So we'll talk about an archive strategy that's a little bit more bulletproof there. We then go in and look at the, based upon the matrix and the application prioritization, migrate and optimize is going to be a subset of your applications that you want to move forward. There's also going to be applications that will just migrate as is. They may have a little bit lower business priority. They may be reference databases, things that you need for standard processes, but not really high visibility applications. There might be applications you want to consolidate, migrate, or archive. There are applications that they're just better off running on the Notes client, flat out, regardless of all the analytics that we do. There are just some applications that are just better left on the Notes client. And then again, the ones that we want to archive. We have an archiving solution that will allow you to take an entire Notes application, including attachments, and archive that off to a PDF format that's still available through the Notes client as well as through the web. Step number 4 is business needs and optimization review here. All high priority applications should be reviewed with the appropriate business owners. And the business owner is typically the power user that you've identified in the investigation and analysis stage. These are the people that don't own the application so much as that they own the data in the application. And it's really, really important that you have a availability to those folks and that those folks are included in the migration process. And not only does that ease the adoption of whatever you're migrating to, because it gets their buy-in to that particular process, but they can also uncover invaluable information during that particular process. My favorite story in this is early days we got an application that we were running through our transformer tool. And as you expect, here at GBS, we've got some developers that are pretty clever. They've been working with Notes and Domino for a while. For the life of us, though, we couldn't figure out what this action in the action bar did. You know, we're looking at the code. It doesn't work in the Notes client. It's obviously not going to work once we transform it or convert it to X pages. And we just kind of stared at it and stared at it. And finally, we got the business owner on the phone, the business owner of the application, because the developer wasn't familiar with the application. And we asked her, we said, you know, we got this button, this action in the action bar. We can't really figure out what it does. It doesn't work. And she goes, oh, yeah, no, that action doesn't work. And we go, really? And then we said, well, what do you do when you're training a new user how to use this application? It was a pretty high priority application, lots of new users coming into it. She goes, yeah, we train them not to push that button. And we were like, okay. So there was an opportunity that, if we hadn't actually had access to the business owner, we might have wasted a significant amount of development cycles trying to make something work that doesn't work. And we were actually able to visit with her, find out what that button was supposed to do, and then move that into the new application space. But having access to these folks, again, is critical to the success of any migration project, regardless of the target that you're migrating to. These folks are going to be able to validate the application's prioritization as well. There's certain applications out there, for example, when we do our investigation and analytics, that we find out, this application doesn't look like it is accessed very often because, we did our inventory of the application and analysis of the application in June. Well, we find out that, the application is really only used at year-end for year-end performance appraisals evaluation. Everybody in the company uses it. It's very high priority, and we know that by, again, talking to the business owner. Right? Applications considered for optimization can also be reviewed with those business owners. So when we talk about web enabling those things, we can talk about user interface improvements. We can discover actions on the action bar that have never worked. This is also an opportunity to review that application for additional functionality. I equate application development to, like, here in the United States, in San Francisco, there's a bridge called the Golden Gate Bridge. And they're never done painting it. As soon as they start painting one end and they get all the way to the other end, it's literally time to go to the other end and start painting it again. And application development is like that. So when we develop an application and to the specs and we put it in the user's hands and it does everything that the user asked for it to do, they're going to find some additional things that they want done because now they've seen the power and they've been exposed to the application functionality, and they're like, yeah, well, if it could just do this one more thing. A lot of application owners want to be able to take that application mobile via smartphones and tablets. They want to be able to implement multilingual support. We'll talk about advanced reporting and graphics application consolidation opportunities. Migrations that we use, if the target platform, and we'll talk about technology selection again in step 5, but basically via GBS Transformer 2, our expert services and consulting are going to go in and look at an existing application and be able to convert or transform that application to the target X-Page application by only looking at the design. So we get a design-only copy of the original application. That design-only copy is going to generate X-Page artifacts from all of the existing forms, views, agents in the application. I've put it in red here, and I just can't emphasize it enough. If I blew it up to 72 font and just flashed it on the screen, unlike any other migration option, I don't really care which option you choose. Google Docs, SharePoint, some other variation of different containers and platforms. You have to migrate your data, and in my 20 years experience of people that have migrated applications off the Lotus Notes space, I have never seen any Notes application migrated with 100% fidelity, or certainly not any applications of any type of complexity. When we transform an application from its existing Notes value or its Notes design interface to the Xpage-based Web 2.0 interface, we don't touch the data. Nothing about the data is touched. So your investment in that data that gets carried forward is paramount to us. That also brings in the opportunity for us that you don't have to do the hard cutoff date. So when you're migrating an application to Xpages using our transformation technology, you can use a phased approach, because people can still access the data through their Notes client. So it's not, if you've got 1,000 users using an application, you don't have to tell all 1,000 users that they're done on Friday and they have a new web interface on Monday. You can do it by geographic region, you can do it by department, you can do it by any basic categorization that makes sense. Additional treatment for applications, again, highly sensitive information, because we don't touch the data, we don't get the data when we harvest the design-only copy of the application, then all of that is safe and secure. So your technology selection. So again, we look at the domino space, and we like to say here at GBS that we are definitely the experts in the Notes and Domino space and the IBM software space. And that's certainly not to say that we don't have experts who don't know about the competition or the other things that are out there. So we look at tools in our toolbox. So again, the primary tool that we would like everybody to choose is obviously Xpages and Transformer, but we take a very consultative approach from the standpoint is that we're going to come in and we're going to listen to what your needs are. Why are you migrating to, from whatever version you're on to version 8.5? Why are you migrating to 8.5? What are the reasons for that? Maybe you're migrating your mail to some other mail platform, but you still need to migrate your applications. So we're not coming in and just trying to surgically move your applications and data to a space and walk away. We want to very much be your partner in this process. Variety of factors, again, are going to influence the selection of a specific technology for your older applications. They might use, again, a combination of different technologies moving forward to support, and some of those are going to be based upon business reasons, and some of those are going to be based upon just management reasons. So again, sometimes that's kind of outside of maybe your particular decision-making role or responsibility, but then you're still the one who has to live with that decision. So we want to make sure that we have definitely gone in and again partnered with you to find these things out. In our experience over the past years in determining the target platforms that organizations are going to choose, so obviously Microsoft Net, MS Net, SharePoint, that kind of falls out at the top of the list. And that's primarily because organizations are planning on moving their mail. And if they're moving their mail to the Microsoft stack, then definitely they've been told it's logical to move all your applications to a Microsoft stack as well. Well, you don't move your applications to Exchange. You move your applications to SharePoint. And again, we're not here to bash the competition. I know folks that use SharePoint. I know folks that create rock-solid applications using the SharePoint technology. What I have not heard, and what I continue polling my friends that are in the Microsoft SharePoint world on, several of which have been involved in Domino to SharePoint migrations, is their successful migration of an existing medium complexity Notes workflow application over into SharePoint. And how long did that take? To the extreme, I know one organization who started 3 years ago and still do not have a single application in production in the SharePoint side. Now, again, that's kind of obviously the extreme side. On the opposite side of that, I know that organization that I talked to just last week, that they were talking about migrating one of their Notes applications, and the .NET development team was quoting them, yeah, that's a 3-month or a 6-month project for one application. So definitely there's some things to consider there, and you want to make sure that you're asking all the right questions when people are looking at moving to that particular platform. Gartner has a really good article out there, Are You Running SharePoint or SharePoint Running You? And certainly it provides food for thought, so something you should probably take a look at if that's the decision that's been made in your world. There's also third-generation web tools that are out there, specifically Google Force, Java Webster Application Server, being able to move applications to the J2EE space. Typically that is by moving the logic into J2EE, JSP, JSF, and moving your container, if you will, to typically a relational database. In the IBM world, obviously, we would want that to be IBM Webster Application Server and DB2. There's COTS, which is commercial off-the-shelf software, so there's additional things that are out there. There's open source applications that are available, specifically Damien Katz and CouchDB. The NoSQL-based databases, which Notes and Domino was the kind of the first player in that particular field. And then IBM XPages via GBS Transformer, or just XPages. You can definitely look at converting your existing space to core XPages. We would like you to actually consider moving to core XPages via our GBS Transformer technology. One of the reasons, and we'll talk about kind of the value proposition, but I'll talk a little bit about it now. If you make the decision to migrate from the platform that you're currently on now, 6X or 7X, and you want to move to just core XPages, and you have any number of applications, more than 20, say, then you need to look at the number of developers you have, because it becomes an arithmetic problem. We've determined over the past 3 years since XPages technology has been available that the average number of hours a single developer takes to migrate a single application of medium complexity is 160 to 240 hours. So if you have one developer and it takes them 160 to 240 hours to migrate a single app to XPages, and that's assuming they've already learned, understand, and are fully equipped to develop XPages, then how many developers is it going to take to migrate the number of applications that you have? We're talking to organizations that have hundreds and even thousands of applications that they need to migrate. And there's just flat not enough developer hours in the day, in the week, in the month, in the year. So one of the value propositions, and we'll talk again more about this, is that one of the things that our R&D team was tasked with when they created GBS Transformer is that has to be reduced. And the target number that we shoot for is 10 to 40 hours per application. As one of our service engineers using the Transformer technology can transform an application in 10 to 40 hours, which is a fraction of the time that it would take manually. Okay? So a little bit matrix about financial considerations. None of this is free, if you will. So Microsoft Net SharePoint, the project duration can take a long time and can certainly cost a not insignificant amount of money. What we've looked at, and when we get in and we talk to organizations, specifically the ones that are thinking about sunsetting their Notes client, but they have mission-critical data in the applications to be transformed, then that allows us to go in and, again, consult with those folks and find out that we can sunset their Notes clients, and the licensing costs that they save by sunsetting their Notes clients a lot of times is going to actually pay a good portion of the migration costs moving forward. So a lot of times when you look at alternate technologies, then all you're doing is trading your Notes client license for additional client license of another flavor. So in the long run, you're not actually saving any money because it's just a one-to-one match. So again, we get into a lot more details of that inside of the white paper, and again, I encourage you to kind of go through and look at that. Planning and review. If we only had 48 hours in a day, So a couple things to think here. My grandfather used to tell me that if you don't plan your work will plan you. And there was a lot of truth to that. You know, in my early 20s, I kind of laughed at that saying and until I really got out in the job market and figured out that there was an extreme amount of truth to what my grandfather had told me. And that, you know, when I went into projects or any kind of work environment without a plan, it took 2 to 10 times longer than it did if I had just spent 30 minutes thinking it out first. So that's really stuck with me, you know, over my career. And definitely a migration project is something that you want to spend more than half an hour thinking about prior to. So one of the, again, quotes we have from Gartner here is a common pitfall for migrations is kind of this big bang approach is, you know, take everything that you have and then, you know, it's going to be, you know, cut off on, Friday the 30th. And, you know, then on Monday the 3rd, we're going to, you know, turn on the brand new system and everything will just work and life will be glorious and there will be unicorns and rainbows. And it just doesn't work that way. Definitely a phased approach of any migration, regardless of the target platform that you're going to choose, is going to make a lot more sense. You've got to, a lot of times, upgrade your hardware. You've got to upgrade the operating system at the same time. If you're moving from 6x to 8.x, then you've got to ensure that the existing Notes applications run in the 8x space, regardless of whether they've been exit page enabled or not. So you then want to then say, okay, well, then which applications are we going to start converting to X pages? Are we going to do all the mission critical ones first? Are we going to do some of the low-hanging fruit? Which of those things? So definitely a streamlined phase approach for migration is extremely more realistic and definitely puts you, in a more successful light. We've identified the 4 key planning kind of subject areas. So, creation and prioritization of the phases is absolutely critical. Resource allocation certainly can't be downplayed. What are our existing resources? How many administrators do we have? How many developers do we have? Do we have enough administrators and developers who, oh yeah, by the way, they have to continue doing their day job, can help in this migration effort? How much time do they actually have to spend or allocate to this particular process? Oops, sorry. Infrastructure planning, again, commissioning, decommissioning different Domino servers, their environment, what do we do with the clients, etc. I've underlined communications and training here only because a lot of times the folks that are involved in making the migration decision, at a higher level, so IT admin, even the developers and admins that are included in this, as they're going through and making decisions, they haven't gotten any feedback from the user community. It is paramount that during that decision-making process of the planning phase, so the decision's already been made to move to platform XYZ. It's imperative that once that decision's been made, that you bring in the business owners, the data owners, and they be involved in this migration planning process because they're going to want they're the ones who are going to throw the monkey wrenches into the process once you try to deploy these things, because they're the ones that are going to say, but what about X? And they'll go, well, we didn't think about X because we're not really thinking from the end user perspective or point of view. So absolutely pulling them in is going to save you a lot of time and heartache and pain. Once you plan the work, you're ready to work the plan. And so step 7 is actually the conversion itself. So we talk about the patent pending transformer to converter. That's a central component. It's used by our expert services consultants. It's going to convert your Lotus application UI and business logic. The UI conversion, I really can't stress enough as well when we get into step 9, in that we were talking to an organization that was, we were basically bidding for some work, and we were going head to head with some SharePoint developers, and so they gave us the original Notes application, and we took it to the lead developer, and the business owner, and we said, okay, well, here's your original Notes application, and here it is converted via GBS Transformer. And literally the business owner's eyes lit up because we got to go after the SharePoint demonstration. And the business owner says, that's my application. The SharePoint thing they showed me, I had no clue how to use. Most of my data could be there, but I didn't know where to click. I didn't know how to navigate. I didn't know anything. This is my application. It looks like my application. It feels like my application. It acts like my application. And that certainly shouldn't be downplayed. It's not that it's going to look exactly like the Notes client, because you can definitely dress these things up. But being able to capture that UI experience, again, is a huge value add. The other thing that we bring over is the existing Lotus script and app formula logic. Now, obviously, if anybody has done any core X page development, you know that IBM ported over a subset of the app functions, but they didn't port them all. You also know that they didn't port any Lotus script because currently the recommendation from IBM, and definitely our recommendation if you're doing core conversion of Notes applications to X-Page applications, is that you think about rewriting that Lotus script logic in server-side JavaScript, client-side JavaScript. One of the value adds that we bring to the table, and again, I've kind of highlighted it in red there, because a lot of people, they have trouble kind of getting their heads around this, is part of what we've done is actually written a Lotus script to Java converter. We actually parse all of the Lotus script logic in your existing application, and we create Java binaries from that. Now, we don't just do that under the covers in a black box kind of way. We actually bring over the original Lotus script and embed that into the converted output, which is the X pages and the custom controls. And again, I can't emphasize this enough, is that one of the barrier to entries for Domino developers moving to X pages is learning server-side JavaScript, learning client-side script, learning Java. Now, I've been an advocate of learning those three things for a very, very long time, but I also know the reality is there's so many hours in the day. So if we are able to provide developers the opportunity to continue maintaining their existing application logic in a language, i.e. Lotus script, that they already know, then they can do that. They can go into the converted application that embeds the existing Lotus script into the created objects, and if they want to change something about the logic, then they program that in Lotus script, which again, a language your support staff already knows. Once the application is converted manually or through our tool, then you're going to build that out. We use the build process that's actually built directly into Designer, so that's going to compile the existing artifacts, X pages and custom controls into the executable that runs. Builder also is used for enhancement and optimizations that can be made. So when we use the builder process, that's something that when customers sign up for our maintenance, are going to be able to continue to get updates to, because as we learn more about the conversion and creating the code, then again we can do that more efficiently than we do that through the build process. We replace non-transformable code. Our consultants, when we look at transforming an application, the fidelity ratio that we shoot for is a 70 to 100% fidelity ratio. And simply what that means is not all applications are going to convert 100%. So that's why Transformer is not a tool. It's not the magic unicorn code black box, but it is very much a services engagement. Then we come in and consult with you, and then our service engineers are responsible for taking the converted application and then taking it from the conversion percentage, anywhere again 70 to 100, and then flushing that out. We're going to do things like replace non-transformable code with like-for-like functions. If you have an application that is creating Excel spreadsheets by making COM calls to the installed version of Microsoft Office on the disk, well, it's not that that doesn't transform because it's a transformed app. It's that doesn't work on the web. So you would have to come up with some kind of strategy to replace that. And again, that's one of the things that we've already done So we can actually replace that functionality like for like. We can add new features by getting an enhancement list, again, from the data owner. Look at your workflow process logic, adoption of the X-Pages multilingual support if need be, merging and consolidating applications. Again, that's all done through our expert services team. And finally, the execution. We deploy those applications to the Domino 8.5 X server space. So the transformation extension library is a technology that's built on top of core X-Pages and the OpenNTF extension library that was developed primarily by IBM, but then also heavily contributed to by our R&D engineers. So this execution environment that we deploy to the Domino servers is what allows transformed applications that include, for example, the native Lotus script code to be executed and ran in that Domino server space. The additional value add for the transformation extension library runtime is that it allows us a unique opportunity because we know what the code output's going to be. We can definitely take advantage of the existing theming capabilities that are built into core X-Pages, but then we can also do some really, really cool things, for example, without any additional code. And I'm going to slow down here and we'll say that a couple times. Without any additional code in the original application or the converted application, we can take any transformed app and just through the transformation extension library runtime on your server, we can mobile enable any converted app. So you can go from Notes client application to Web 2.0 / mobile enabled application in the same step without having to build mobile technology capabilities into the design of the application. We have a mobile, a touch mobile render kit that, again, is just going to take the output that's generated and provide it based upon client type to iPhones, iPads, BlackBerries, Androids. We also have the ability then to go in the same fashion, and one thing that I'll demonstrate here at the end is the ability through our runtime to take any categorized view that includes numerical data and instantly create charts and graphs from that. And again, that doesn't include any coding in the converted application or the original application. It's simply a value add by using the transformation extension library execution environment. Archive or convert, build, and run. So when going in and looking at the decision here and going all the way back to step 2 where we talked about doing our investigation and analytics, there's some applications. So if we, during the investigation analytics phase, we discover 1,000 applications that are your application inventory. Certain applications that are just not going to be needed anymore. In other words, it doesn't make any sense to convert them to a brand new Web 2.0 look and feel because no one's accessed them in 5 years. But they still need to be available, again, for either compliance reasons or archival reasons or anything else. We have a tool for this, that our ePDF tool. GBS ePDF is going to take an existing Notes client application. It's going to zip it up and basically make it available through any PDF reader, 300 input file formats. It's going to take the Notes data, documents, as well as any attachments. Pages can be stamped, numbered, merged, and then instantly, again, brought up and made available. Complete, indexing and searchability, so you get the best of both worlds there. Step number 8, QA and testing, and we really can't emphasize this enough. I am still surprised. I've been doing Notes and Domino consulting, development administration consulting, again, for well over 20 years, and I can't even tell you how many organizations where I've gone into to be a consultant, to be a contractor, and I've developed code for them, and I said, well, now it's time, we need to put this out on QA UAT, and they just look at me, and they're like, what is this QA UAT thing of which you speak? I said, you've got a quality assurance server, a test server, where you do your user acceptance testing. before you move it into production? And a lot of times, the answer has been, oh no, we just put that on the production server and let the users try it out. I can't even begin to tell you, how bad an idea that is. But it still happens a lot of places. It's definitely, if this is something you've not implemented in your environment, then this is definitely the opportunity to do it. Build up your QA UAT environment. This is where your users go to test it. In our phase, again, once we've converted an application, possibly applied some theming to it, brought it up to the 100%, then we pass that off to you to do QA UA testing. So whether you do that in your QA environment or whether you do that in production, then that's your ability to test the fidelity of the converted application with your real live data. Provide us feedback if need be, or once it passes QA UAT, then move that directly into production. But I really, really hope that you have that QA UAT environment. Again, some quotes from Gartner here. Once they've been certified, certainly the power users, the business sponsors and owners can go through the UAT process to ensure that, again, those business processes were probably migrated and that the application is simply working as it should. Talks here about the quote, again, poor software quality can have a negative impact on any business. Flat out, if we convert their application to X Pages or some platform and it doesn't look, feel, or act like the application they've been using for the past 15 years, then they're going to be very reluctant to use it, or in some cases not use it at all. And then you start actually losing business process. You're not capturing the data. They write it down on note cards, whatever. So absolutely, you want to get the user buy-in via QA UAT process. I've been in the Notes Domino world for, we'll just say more than 20 years, but a while. And one of the big aspects of that has been providing training. I did, as a CLI, I did formal classroom training. I've developed courses for TLCC as well as additional user-based self-paced courses. And in that experience over the past 20 years, I can tell you that absolutely training is the number one most underfunded and neglected aspect of a process, which is, I'm going to keep circling back to things that we've discussed. It's paramount that you actually have power user buy-in in the planning stage, because those are the ones who need to be trained, and those are the ones that are going to be, able to give you some additional feedback on the level and depth and degree of training that needs to be done. GBS recommends, again, the majority of the screen layouts, user interfaces within the newly migrated application need to best possibly reflect, again, the application that they used. We have, again, a variety of themes and render kits. That doesn't mean that they have to look and feel exactly like the Notes application, but they can certainly, keep the navigator on the left, action bars on the top, etc. This level, again, of flexibility is going to allow for planning, future changes and make that just so much easier. One of the issues that I came across and a lot of organizations come across is, how is it that we're going to then communicate to our end user community their access to these new Web 2.0 applications? Because they used to have a Notes workspace, and now they've got a list of URLs. Well, what if we could actually on the web give them their Notes workspace back? And that's exactly what we've done by licensing a technology, and we refer to this as the GBS web space. Web-enabled version of the traditional Notes client workspace. So there's folks out there, whether you love it or hate it, this provides an opportunity to provide an experience very, very similar to the user's experience that they have now with Notes. You give them one URL, it has the applications that look like the chiclets that they've been using, again, for the past 5, 10, 15 years. Manage and deploy each of those migrated X-Page applications to the individual user workspace. It also includes links to integrate calendar, email, Lotus Web extensions for same time, etc. So those capabilities exist, and this is certainly one of the things that we encourage folks to look at during their migration. If they don't already have a portal-based strategy to communicate the access to the converted applications, then this is certainly an opportunity for them. Deploy and sustain. Above and beyond migrating your applications, we can also, again, assist with the infrastructure provisioning. So as I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, there are organizations, for whatever reason, right, wrong, or indifferent, that they want to sunset their Notes clients, they want to sunset their Domino servers, they want to get out of the Domino server hardware business, if you will. So that's where IBM's cloud strategy, and if you looked at anything around the cloud business, it's one of those kind of spaces, technologies that is just exponentiating. So outside of IBM, Group Live offers the largest cloud offering in the world. We have services both in Europe as well as the United States, dedicated data centers that allow you to securely move your Domino servers into our cloud space. You can move one server, all of your servers, a portion of your servers, complete replication capabilities. They're your boxes. They just live in our cloud. They can be provisioned, again, in a matter of minutes, various application platforms. MSNet, Lotus Domino, IBM WebSphere, again, we're not limited to the Domino space there. So something to consider is, if you're looking at platform as a service in our cloud offering, then what this allows us to do is provide a complete turnkey solution for you. So you don't have to go to 3 different vendors to complete your migration strategies. That we can help you, again, from the Notes client to the Domino server to the cloud, to archiving your applications, to converting the applications. Okay? Extend the migrated XPages applications to your internal customers. Sort of a software kind of based model there. So sustainability and deployment is, again, definitely something you want to make sure that you've thought through in your deployment strategy there. Keyword here is, again, that we don't come in and try to do any type of surgical strikes. Very much the transformer technology offering, again, it's not a tool. We don't come in and install the tool, or even worse, sell you the tool and wish you good luck. This is very much a services engagement through our Expert Services division, and we'll talk about the head of that in just a little bit. But going in and figuring out exactly what clients need, and then helping them make decisions, whether it's moving on to Notes and Domino 8.5x and XPages and Transformer, or moving to another application space. It's about really doing what's best and what's right for each customer. Maximize your portfolio's contributions to this result. Again, we'll also help with periodic reviews, either ourselves or we'll set you up again to do those same things. So that a governance framework, and once we're done converting things, what you don't want to do is find out in 10 years you're in the exact same place. So to be able to provide metrics to continue giving you analytics on your environment, so that if and when or ever you need to do this exercise again, then you're just significantly better prepared for it. Okay. Last, again, we're going to kind of finish up with the business case for Transformer 2.0, and I've kind of sprinkled the presentation with this. So most of this hopefully is going to be a review. Through our 10 steps, definitely, I hope I've communicated that via Transformer 2.0 that we can go in and convert your applications, especially a large number of applications, cheaper, faster, fewer resources than any commercial off-the-shelf software or alternative platform. The most important aspect of the Transformer technology is the fact that we do not touch your data. Your data is safe the entire conversion project. We can migrate applications, we can archive applications, we can eliminate your Notes client space, as well as take your servers into our cloud offering if need be. This is going to provide 55% lower cost, 75% time savings, and again allow you to do this with fewer resources, but still using your existing admin and developer team to maintain the applications, whether they do that via our cloud or whether we do that for you. Your existing developers continue maintaining their applications that are converted through training that we provide and we offer. So quickly, I'm just going to jump over. For those of you who may not have ever seen it, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail here, but just so that you kind of know that what I've been talking about kind of exists. This is a pretty standard notes application that we've identified that we would refer as kind of medium complexity. It's a help desk ticket application where, this is my problem. It's got a category field, it's got radio buttons, automatically fills in some fields for me. This is a lot of data, that's a rich text field. I can save that as a draft. Exit, go find that application. This is my problem, that was the draft there. I can submit it. It's got some workflow in it. This dialog box is actually being popped up by a Lotus script library. That's going to become real important in just a little bit. Submit the application there. So it is submitted. So again, it's a pretty standard Notes client application. If you were going to manually convert this application to X pages, then again, that's going to fall into the 160 to 240 hours of single development time to kind of get those things moved off. What we want to do is convert this application with GBS Transformer, provide it to the end user space. So we've done that. I've already done that. This would be an example of our GBS web space technology. So it looks and feels like the Notes workspace. I can double click on an icon, and when I double click on that icon, the application will open up, help tickets. So hopefully the first thing that you notice, and I'll toggle, is we've themed this, but the navigation on the left, the document content in the middle, this is very, very similar to the look and feel of the application that was running in the Notes client. So if I open up my category, I can go to the all tickets by priority, anything that's been unassigned. It's an application that they haven't assigned yet. I can go in and create a new ticket. So this is my problem from the web. Again, same category capability, choose a category there, priority radio button, put in, rich text, save as a draft, exit. So, going out there, if I look at my priority or the draft documents, again, there's my problem document. I can open that up. I can submit that. Now I pause here for dramatic effect. This was an original Lotus script dialog box, and without any code changes, we simply take that Lotus script, convert it into Java, and in this particular case using the Dojo capability of the extension library, and then we simply pop up a Dojo dialog box that does the exact same thing. Okay, but that code is maintained in the converted application in Lotus script. Okay? All the actions in the action bar work, all the hide when capability works, so it's all there. What you're looking at here, the effort to convert this application, including putting the theming on it, is approximately 15 total hours of development time. Which again is a tenth of the time that it would typically take to convert this application if you were doing it through traditional core X-page development. And there you have it. Again, we would very much like to thank you for the opportunity to share this information with you. You can contact us, our sales and service organization. That's our contact landing page. So I'm going to leave this open here. For those of you who are not familiar with GBS, Mike Stoltz is our Vice President of Consulting Services. I've thrown Mike's email address up there. My email address was at the beginning. We also have contact information in the white paper. And again, that's the tiny URL for the white paper itself. So you can download that white paper. You can distribute it to folks higher up or lower down, but provide it as a basis to, again, start the dialogue to make sure that if you are going through a migration process, that you crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's. Once again, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in this morning. For we're sure we got folks here from all over the world. So you either got up early or stayed up late, and know that we definitely appreciate your time and attendance here.
And that concludes this edition of Group Talk. Thanks for watching. To engage in conversations with us, visit twitter.com/gbsnotes. To stay up to date, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/joingbs. And to watch entertaining and informative videos, visit youtube.com/gbsnotes. And don't forget, visit our website and send us an email at gbs.com and info@gbs.com. Thanks again.